Hi everybody, this is Spring Washam. I am a teacher, healer, and author. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to this video series. This is a video series on my book, A Fierce Heart, Finding Strength, Courage, and Wisdom in Any Moment. So we are moving on to chapter 4. And I know I'm going to say it again, this is one of my favorite teachings. Chapter 4 is called School of Life. So in this chapter, I really talk about how all of our experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, traumatic experiences, painful experiences, beautiful experiences, everything is part of school. Life is about learning, and especially if you're on a spiritual path, everything that happens, every person, every encounter, everything becomes an opportunity for us to look at ourselves, learn, and grow. That's the point, growing. And so I used to teach mindfulness in school a lot, and I would go to these different classrooms and I would see the symbolism of, the life of school, school of life, all of that right there. In school, in Oakland High, I'll say, there's the students in the front row in any classroom. In the front row, teachers love those students. They're always excited, they're ready, they have their notepads, they have their homework, they answer all the questions the teacher calls on them, and they're great. Teachers love the front row. But I noticed as I would get more and more back row by row, the students would look sleepier and sleepier. And then the back row, they would just be completely asleep. Head on their desk, jacket over their head, that's it. Well, that's also symbolic of how we get through life. Although, what that means is those students would have to retake the class. And that's how life is. It's just always moving in a circular fashion. Things happen over and over. It's like Groundhog Day, that movie with Bill Murray, the same day over and over until we learn the lessons, right? So we can have this feeling, didn't I already do this? Didn't I already date that guy? Didn't I already have this experience? Why is this happening again? And often why that's happening again is that there's something we haven't fully learned from that experience. There's something that we're resisting or that we're not looking at. And so what this chapter is really about is looking at ourselves, coming back to every situation and saying, what am I learning? Even when it's heartbreaking, how can I grow here? What I've come to see is that for every loss, there is a gain. And life isn't happening to us. We are not victims. It's happening for us so that we can learn, grow, and evolve. This is a really important thing to understand because it reframes how we look at experiences. We stop saying this is bad and this is good, and we start saying, yeah, that was hard, that was painful, but I grew, I learned, I evolved. Why was it good my partner left me? Because then I discovered my own strength and power. And sometimes through the worst experience, we learn the most. And if you talk to people from all over the world who have lived through tragedies or difficulties, at the other end of it, they will share because they have experienced the good that has come out of that situation. So it's sort of a hard way to look at life, but a very empowering way to look at life. So I want to tell one story that's in this chapter that I love a lot. People, I tell it and they seem to like it. It seems to help them in some way. I tell a lot of stories of my own pain and suffering. Obviously, that's relatable for many of us. So this was a time where I was living in Peru. I decided to do a one-year retreat in Peru, mostly in the jungle. But I took a break after many months and went up to the mountains. And I went up to Cusco, which is part of the Sacred Valley, the birthplace of the Incan Empire, high altitude, 22,000 feet. And so I signed up to go on a day trip that I thought was going to be led by this great Andean shaman. And so I showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning, ready to go with a small group of tourists. And the great Andean shaman wasn't there. It was his 2 young apprentices. And one was named Juan and one was named Miguel. They were very young. I didn't have a heart connection with them. And so I started off disappointed. So we went an hour on the bus out into the middle of nowhere, right? Way out into the valley. And they pointed to this huge mountain in the distance and they said, we're gonna climb that mountain. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, I don't know, I think I wanna go back. I'm tired, I don't wanna do this. But anyway, we started off walking and I started to get really ill. The high altitude was making me so nauseous. I couldn't catch my breath. My head started pounding. So I started telling them, I'm not feeling well, I'm not feeling well. But they would laugh and say, come on, you can do it, you can do it. And so another hour later, we get to the base of this mountain. And at that point, I'm very sick. I'm practically foaming at the mouth. I just felt like I was about to faint, pass out. It was not good. Everybody else seemed fine. I was not. And so I told them then, I want to go home. Take me home. And they said, you can do it. Come on. Why can't you do it? Let's do it. So everyone starts climbing the mountain. And the mountain is basically straight uphill. And the sun that day was just so intense. It's very hot in Cusco. And my whole body was getting burned. My face was turning red beyond, it was so painful. And so we start trying to go up the mountain and there's these long, slick blades of grass there. And as I'm trying to climb straight up, I'm falling. My shoes are these cheap tennis shoes. They're slick, and so they were falling back. And then always to make everything more dramatic, this wind was coming. And so as I'm trying, this wind would push me back. For me, it was becoming dangerous. I was convinced I was going to fall straight off the mountain in the middle of nowhere. And so I started screaming, take me home, take me home. And so the two apprentices, Juan and Miguel, come over. Why can't you do it? You can do it. And suddenly I just became hysterical. And I started sobbing and pounding my fist and sobbing. And I didn't realize for a long time what I was saying. I was screaming, I can't do it. I can't do it, over and over. And I was pounding and sobbing. And so at that moment, Juan and Miguel, they knew something more serious was going on. And they finally started acting like shamans. They got out their bags and their tobacco and their pipes, and they started praying and touching my back and encouraging me. And I screamed and cried and pounded. And I started reliving memories of every time I believed that thought through my childhood and as adult growing up, thinking, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And it was all as if I was purging it out on that mountain. And so this went on for a long time. I'm not sure how long. They kept singing, kept praying, blowing smoke, offering prayers to the spirits on that mountain. And suddenly I stood up. I stopped crying, I wiped my face, I stood up, and I was able to stand straight up and walk straight up the mountain to the top. And so later when I was in bed, my back went out, covered in sunburns, I smiled. Now that was the worst day of my life and kind of the best day. And that's really how life is, because that experience pushed something forward in me. That I let go of something, this idea that I couldn't do things. So it's a very powerful moment. And that's how our life is when things are difficult. And so School of Life is meant for you, again, to think about your life as a great story. And in any story that you read, there's always the challenges that come, the difficulties, the loss, the suffering. Every human being experiences 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. You don't escape that, no matter who you are. There will always be challenges, but learning how to live through them, open to them, and take the lesson will help you on this path. So that's what this chapter is meant to be. The School of Life, always in session. Get in that front row. Practicing meditation helps us to focus, learn from the situation that's around us. Let this situation that we're all in right now help us to grow. And usually what grows is our own strength, our own power, and our own wisdom. It's all inside of us. We have the key. Remember that from chapter 3. Remember that life is school, and here we will grow together. Thank you for listening, watching, sharing the video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you.